Pre-order Elden Ring, the most anticipated game of 2022. Explore a new world created by Hidetaka Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin.
Nigh is the time of the sword and axe. None will fight this war in our stead.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 RPGs with deep lore.
I have seen the gates of oblivion, beyond which no waking eye may see.
For this list, we're looking at single-player RPGs with novel-length lore. We won't be including MMOs as they deserve their own list, while we will be including games based on existing IPs. Let us know in the comments which RPG world you could read about forever. Number 10. Cyberpunk 2077.
If things get sticky, you head for the safe house.
Though the game does play fast and loose with some of the existing lore from the tabletop RPG, the fact remains that it does have a decades-old tabletop RPG to draw from. Not only that, but it uses lore developed throughout the cyberpunk genre, pulling most liberally from William Gibson's Sprawl trilogy. In fact, you'll likely get more out of Cyberpunk 2077 if you're familiar with the lore of Cyberpunk Red, since the game has so many factions and pieces of history that it doesn't explain up front. It's certainly a game that often keeps you guessing with regards to its lore, like the origins of certain gangs or the corporate wars of the past, but Night City is always going to be a rich, sprawling environment.
Taki-san is expecting you, no?
Senorita, you know how long we've been traveling?
Number 9. Nier series.
Activating short-range attack gear.
The Nier franchise has an incredibly huge lore, all starting with the game it spun off from, Drakengard. In the final ending of the game, the protagonist finds themselves battling in the real world, leading to a deadly disease being inflicted on planet Earth. Fast forward thousands of years, and humanity is on the brink of an extinction as it deals with a mysterious enemy known as Shades. Nier Automata, the most popular game in the series, takes place even further into the future, where humanity has built a race of sentient, powerful androids known as the Yorha to protect it from an alien invasion, and thousands of years later, the androids are still present and trying to defend humankind.
Talk about bringing the battle to them. To be.
Contact command. Request assistance.
Number 8. Dragon Age series. Though the RPG genre is loaded with fantasy settings, Dragon Age still remains a popular game with fans for its lore. Its sister franchise Mass Effect also has some pretty extensive lore you can read in the Codex, but it's just not as detailed as Dragon Age's long history. You have the various different countries, many of which are so large that we've yet to actually see them appear in-game, their histories with each other, and you have the Circles of Magi and the Chantry Andraste. The stories of the Chantry alone could fill a hefty tome, while the complexities of the Mages and Templars fuel most of the conflicts.
We must get to the temple. It's the quickest route.
But not the safest.
Number 7. Fallout series.
If there's anybody left, they'd be in the Nipton Town Hall. Go there. Check it out. Let me know what you find.
After the Second World War, our own universe and the universe of the Fallout games diverged. Fallout's United States managed to develop nuclear technology for the consumer market, fueling a golden age of innovation, until, in 2077, nuclear war broke out between America and China. Called the Great War, it only lasted for 2 hours, after which the entire world was destroyed. Not only is there this primary backstory, but there are long histories for factions like the NCR and the Brotherhood of Steel. In fact, if you played all the games, you witnessed the birth and perhaps death of the NCR over the course of them all. Not to mention that the games cover centuries of events.
And if you're passing through, you picked a bad time. Road north has gone to hell, and if I let a caravan through, they won't make it.
Number 6. Baldur's Gate series. Undoubtedly, the biggest tabletop RPG of all time is Dungeons & Dragons, so of course we had to include the franchise set in that same universe on our list. It's set in the Forgotten Realms and has had many games and huge expansions since it began in 1998, with those games all being made by extremely well-regarded RPG studios. The likes of Black Isle Studios, Snowblind, and BioWare have all worked on games in this series. The expansions make the series even more complex, but it's worth it to spend time getting to grips with the lore, as Baldur's Gate 3, developed by the brains behind Divinity, is currently in development. Number 5. The Elder Scrolls series.
These are the closing days of the Third Era, and the final hours of my life.
Bethesda's flagship fantasy series, The Elder Scrolls, is the franchise that put the company on the map and made them what they are today. The world of Tamriel is so huge that every game takes place in a new region, ones you've probably heard people mention for years, because much of the world building was developed way back with the first game. People spent more than a decade waiting to finally explore Skyrim after hearing about it for so long. And the benefit of Bethesda's region-centric structure is that every new game can build more unique lore specific in that area, meaning that there's going to be even more in-game books to read by the time we get The Elder Scrolls 6. Number 4. Divinity Original Sin 2.
Before you were overrun by these elves, dwarves, humans, they meddled with a power they didn't understand.
Seen by many as the absolute gold standard of fantasy RPGs, Divinity Original Sin 2 is certainly not forgiving to newcomers. You're gonna have to get to grips with a complex dialogue system and combat mechanics that have a very steep learning curve. But it's all worth it for the game's rich world. Like the other games in the series, though Original Sin 2 is certainly the best, it's set in Rivellon and focuses on magic users, here called sorcerers after the source of their power. And not only does it include the usual elves, dwarves, and humans, but also a race of sentient lizard people and talking undead skeletons. Number 3. Bloodborne. Though every Soulsborne game has deep, rich lore, including 2022's Elden Ring, Bloodborne might be the title that crams the most into one release. Going down a gothic horror route, Bloodborne begins as what looks like a relatively simple story of corruption and werewolf-like monsters. Slowly though, things collapse. It turns out that Bloodborne was secretly a Lovecraftian cosmic horror game all along, brimming with ancient elder gods and nightmarish experimentation. You learn a lot through those famously obtuse item descriptions this time around as well, all about the sadistic underside of the Healing Church, where the beasts come from, and what a toll the Old Blood is taking on Yharnam. Number 2. Final Fantasy series. Though all the mainline, numbered Final Fantasy games take place separately from each other in different worlds, they all share a collective lore and many returning tropes and creatures. All the games have generally the same vibe. They mix advanced technology with magic, like the ethereal Mako in Final Fantasy VII being part of an industrial power company, and are about a heroic group of adventuring friends. Plus, there is one famous animal you'll see in every single game: chocobos. It's extremely impressive that each individual game manages to have such deep lore all its own without necessarily being connected to any of the others. At least, not directly in most cases. This video is brought to you by Elden Ring. Elden Ring is an expansive action RPG from the minds behind the Souls games and Game of Thrones. You are the Tarnished, an exiled warrior looking to reclaim their home and bring peace to the realm. To do this, you journey across the lands between, a sprawling fantasy world with dark secrets, dangerous enemies, and powerful gear waiting to be discovered. With your trusty spectral steed, you can roam the world with complete freedom. Customize your warrior with a variety of classes, each with unique traits and abilities suited to take down beasts and men alike. With a fast-paced and engaging combat system, deep lore and story, and incredible bosses and world design, Elden Ring is the definitive action fantasy experience. Own it on February 25th. Number 1. The Witcher series. With 8 huge novels by Andrzej Sapkowski to pull from, it's no surprise that none of CDPR's Witcher games has a single wasted moment. Whether you're completing small side quests or getting invested in the grandiose main story, you're always going to be chipping away at the massive catalog of lore and adding new entries to Geralt's bestiary. The series has a seemingly endless number of supernatural creatures to contend with, including that many Geralt himself doesn't know much about, like Gaunter O'Dim. With a blockbuster TV show and a supposed 4th game in the works from CDPR, the lore of The Witcher never ends.
And you, Roach. We must speak another time.
Pre-order Elden Ring, the most anticipated game of 2022. Explore a new world created by Hidetaka Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin.